serving in the Toledo Diocese since 1978 and obtained her Bachelor of Arts in Religious Studies and Psychology from Lourdes University. Her Master's in Pastoral Theology and Studies from St. Mary's University in Winona, Minnesota. Completed a year-long certification program in Catholic bioethics from the National Catholic Bioethics Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She's an adjunct professor at Lourdes University and teaches theology and ethics course at 2:15 today as first class. For the Diocese of Toledo, she's an instructor in the Mysterium Christi Institute and in the Diaconate Formation Program. She presents on various topics to parishes in our diocese and also direct retreats. She has been here last, Pat, as I remember, for our marriage enrichment, our Valentine's event. So you spoke, I think, about 5 years ago.
I think so, yeah.
So welcome back to St. Joe's. We're really happy you're here.
Thanks.
Okay. Let's see if I can get this on without causing too much trouble. Well, when Joanne asked me to do this, bioethics, medical ethics is certainly one of my favorite topics. I've been teaching it for a long time. But this past year I lost my husband, well, past year, 2019, and I came face to face with a lot of the stuff I teach. So, and I was grateful. The nurses in ICU said to me, you know, you're one of the most reasoned people we've ever dealt with in ICU. And I said, only because I've taught this for like 20 years. So I know the questions to ask, I know what to look for. So I was very grateful for my training. It doesn't make losing somebody any easier, but it certainly made the process of understanding what was going on and asking the right questions a lot easier. So I'll probably touch on some of that today. But I'm going to be talking about the idea of principles that we use. I asked Joanne, like, well, I wasn't real sure, you know, medical ethics is broad, and bioethics is broad. And so decided to just do some foundational stuff with you today and touch a little bit on some other issues. But feel free to ask questions as we go along. It doesn't bother me at all. And if I know I'm going to be talking about that, I'll just say I'm going to get to that. So, you know, don't hesitate. But I want you to know there is a difference between what we call secular medical ethics or medical ethics principles and Catholic medical ethics principles. You might say, well, there's a difference. Aren't ethics principles the same? No. Okay, they're not. I usually go to UT and talk to the medical students, and say there's no way we should ever collaborate with, public health care because of what they do. And that's scandal. And then, but the directives don't say that. The directives say that you have to be measured in that consideration about what you're going to cooperate with them on, right? So that, obviously you can't cooperate having Planned Parenthood do abortions, right? But there might be at a public hospital, there might be other things that you can work with them on, but you've got to be very clear and specific in what you're doing so that you don't kind of create scandal in the community, so that they don't look at this Catholic healthcare institution and say, well, look what they're doing. Okay, look what they're working with. So that's kind of a brief outline about all the things you can find in there. What I'm going to do is actually touch on some of the principles that we draw from that. So when you read the directives, you're not going to find, here's a principle, here's a principle, here's a principle. What bioethics does is, as they read those directives, they pull the principles out as the guiding force behind decisions that are to be made. So I'm going to touch on a number of different principles that are drawn out of this document and then help us make decisions as we're faced with them, okay? And some of them are going to be very, very clear to you. And you're going to see some will deal more with beginning of life issues, some more with end of life issues, but all of them are principles that guide our choices. So sanctity of life, obviously, here we always say from the moment of conception to natural death. This is the first right of the human being. Without this right, no other rights exist. So if you don't have the right to life, there's no reason to talk about other rights because it's contingent upon having the right to life. The other thing that the church points out very clearly is you don't have the right to life because somebody like the government says you have the right to life. It's not contingent on anybody else. That's a gift from God. Okay? So if somebody doesn't recognize, and that's our issue with abortion, right? Somebody doesn't recognize it's a human being, so therefore they can kill it. The idea becomes, well, it doesn't matter whether you recognize it as a human being or not, right? It is a human being, and that's not something the mother grants to the child. It already has it. And again, even scientifically, we know that it is not just another piece of the mom. She does what she will do for that child for years. She will feed it and house it. And that's what she's doing when she's pregnant. She's feeding it and housing it. And she doesn't add any chromosomes to it as it develops. All that's there from the moment of conception. We know it's already human. It's not like we don't know it's human and then about maybe 6 months, my golly, I think it's human. We know from the moment of conception it's human. Human dignity, again, people in positions of authority have to realize that we have a right to participate in decisions that affect us. We certainly see that in healthcare, right? I mean, doctors shouldn't come in and tell you what to do. You should be able to participate in this decision that's going to affect you. And it should be made at the most appropriate level. You know, we're seeing some controversies now in the news concerning especially infants that are born with issues, you know, and maybe, you know, the doctors and medical people are saying, you know, they're never going to get better, just let them go, right? And the family's saying, no, I want you to do more. And so then now we're starting to see hospitals saying, well, we're not going to do more, right? So we're really, you know, and I'm not saying there's an easy answer to this, so I'm not saying the hospitals are the bad guys or the patients are the bad guys here. But I really think this idea is so often when we don't understand what's going on, it's hard to participate in those decisions. And because healthcare moves quickly and fast, a lot of times you don't always get the answers you need. But it's up to us to ask those questions. You know, God bless my mom. I would take her to the doctor, and I was the one that would ask lots of questions. And all the way home, she would yell at me, you know, why did you ask the doctor that? You know, he's the doctor. He wouldn't tell me to do it. And I said, Mom, it's your body. You should ask these questions, right? It's your heart. It's your, you know, you should know. Oh, he's the doctor. I trust him. Okay. But again, I think that principle of subsidiarity does put responsibility on us. You can leave it all to the doctor if that's what you choose. But when we come to like some of these cases now that are in the news, and there are people kind of going head to head over treatment, somewhere along the line there is a lack of understanding. And you know, sometimes hospitals may just have to give families a little more time. And I know that's a hard thing because we're talking money, right? But a family may need a little more time in order to get to the point where they're okay with that. I always tell my students, especially end of life, you don't go back. I mean, once that decision's made, they're gone. You know, so you don't get a do-over. So you better be sure when you're making those decisions that you feel okay with these decisions being made. And so again, you know, we worry about any kind of, you know, excessive intervention by the state that can kind of threaten our personal freedom. Distributive justice. Now, medical ethics, obviously, we talk about certainly everyone is entitled to equal access to the basic care necessary for living in a human way. That's justice. Now, I have this conversation, I threw this out to my class one day. I said, so, what is the basic care necessary? They couldn't agree. They were all over the board, right? I mean, some were saying, oh, this is like food and clothing, and others were saying, oh, no, it's, you know, you've got to have this, be able to get this treatment, that treatment. We can't, you know, we use these very general terms because we should, and we need some room for interpretation, but it also then gives us a lot of discussion about what is justice and what is fair. The other thing in medical ethics certainly is that benefits and burdens should be distributed in a just manner. So one person shouldn't be getting all the benefits of something and the other person get all the burden. That wouldn't be distributive justice. Justice would be distributed fairly. And I talk a lot about this in research, right? If you're a research subject, you know, the question becomes, are you going to get all the burden and no benefits? It really should be as equal as it can be when we're dealing with this. Formal and material cooperation. Again, I did a whole presentation on just cooperation one time at UT with the students, and by the end I was confused. You can really get into the weeds with this because they talk about remote and this, and I mean, it gets really in-depth. But I'm not going to go in that kind of depth. But I do want you to understand, though, that cooperation just means that how responsible or called that if you lose the mom, you will lose that child. So you're trying to make sure that you're treating the mom, even though it may have an adverse effect on that child. Okay? And that's kind of the tightrope we walk in those situations. Yeah. And that's one of those things, again, you know, boy, I could really go into the weeds with you on the whole thing of ectopic pregnancies and using drugs and moral discussion on that to remedy that, but I'm not going to go there. We don't have enough time. And it can really get into that. The principle of inseparability usually certainly affects a lot of our beginning of life issues like contraception, those kinds of things. God has ordered the sexual activity of spouses around two ends of union and procreation. So sexual act involves unitive and procreative, and they are not to be split apart. They are two ends of the same act. Proportionate and disproportionate means, a lot of times you'll hear this as ordinary and extraordinary means. Proportionate or ordinary is treatment that in the given circumstances, that's important, offers a reasonable hope of benefit and is not too burdensome for the patient or others. Disproportionate, any treatment given the circumstances either offers no reasonable hope of benefit or is too burdensome for the patient or others. Okay? Now notice, again, reasonable hope of benefit, that's a pretty broad understanding of making decisions. And burdensome, what is burdensome? Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I want to get this principle out and then we'll come back to it. Now notice, I'm just going to kind of close this principles piece with these three, and I call them middle principles. And the reason I call them middle principles, and you'll notice three of them, these three are three that we started with, right? As far as what anybody would learn taking a medical ethics class at UT or PG or something like that, the four principles. These three. I call them middle principles because beneficence does not define good, non-maleficence does not define harm, so that means they're in the middle. They point to another principle to say what is harmful or what is good. Okay? So in my that can tell us what's wrong, because none of the doctors are agreeing. One doctor saying it's cirrhosis of the liver. I said, no, it's not. I know enough to know cirrhosis is a stage disease. My husband doesn't drink, but I know that you can get cirrhosis from other things. He went from 0 to 100 in 3 weeks. This is not cirrhosis. Well, I think it's not. So then he said, well, then it's got to be cancer. The cancer doctor says it's not cancer. So we're not getting anybody that's willing to refer us out because they don't know what they're referring